The Hunger Games has always been one of my favourite franchises since I can remember. They've almost always existed in the span of my consciousness, and as I've got older, they've only gotten stronger. Despite the fact that they are young adult novels adapted into young adult movies aimed at young adult audiences, I think the greatest attribute of Suzanne Collins' work is that all of these films or books could easily be R-rated or simply written for an older audience and it would land the same. The ideas and concepts are so strong and powerful that they should resonate through all audiences. In a way, it's the same thing that makes someone like James Cameron so special. And The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is another exceptional inclusion in that legacy. There are so many things to talk about in this film, truly there is, but the thing that matters most to me, the thing that makes this stand out as a prequel that performs better than the majority of others, is its themes and mirroring of the original work that doesn't just add to the world, doesn't just give context to the world, it enhances the original work. It makes better what was already great. This isn't just another nostalgia bait release, it's a quality inclusion into the series that doesn't just stand among the originals, it stands above some of them. Yes, I think this film is better than a couple of the original films. I think the thing that it does which is most interesting is take focus from the survivors and put it onto Snow himself. This film, as well as of course the novel it's based on, could have easily been focused on Lucy Gray, but it isn't. Because the reality is, Snow is a much more compelling and interesting character. I saw a lot of responses to this film claim that the events that follow are as a result of his heartbreak at the end. I mean, the top reviews, if you can call them that, on Letterboxd are to this very point, which I think is a woeful misreading of Snow's journey. He was always a fascist, he was always morally questionable, he was always destined to be his father, heartbreak or not. Being easily likable doesn't take away from being evil. That's one of the greatest attributes to both Blythe and Sutherland's performances. They were able to portray that simple menace, that cold and unmistakable evil, whilst presenting as gracious and kind. I think it's shocking how many people miss that. There's a beautiful moment where his cousin says that he doesn't need to become who his father was, because from what we know and contextual clues, he was a dictator, a person, a figurehead that people revolted against, which started the dark days. And then in the end, as Snow rose to his position, when asked what his cousin thinks of his attire, she cheerlessly says that he looks just like his father. Payoff that could easily be brushed off if not noticed, but when noticed is the crux of the story. I think people miss these things because they wanted to like Snow. Despite knowing who he becomes, despite seeing what choices he makes in this film that are more than questionable, they want to like him because the film makes you want to like him. Because he has a romance with a perfectly beautiful and morally centered woman, and if she could love him, why can't we? People get blinded very easily, and I think it's pretty ironic that the audience falls victim to the very thing that Lucy Gray doesn't. The love he had for Lucy Gray was real, but so were his fundamental passions for power. It's the duality of man, it's the entire idea behind the film. One of my favourite moments was when Casca Highbottom told Snow that he can't have both the plinth prize and also the girl. Though obviously in the moment that means very much what is being said, it's ultimately emblematic of Snow's inability to understand he can't have the girl along with his true desires for power, order and dictatorship, because her values simply don't align, and the story is watching him figure out which means more to him. In the end, his passive approach on making a decision costs him the girl, the only thing that ever truly mattered. The most extravagant example of wanting your cake and to eat it too. I also thought something interesting was the tie-in on the reason for the games, as it plays hand in hand with why there's a winner. Gaul asks twice in the movie why we have the games at all. First time, there's a few responses that get thrown around like it's punishment or oppression, but those answers don't satisfy her. In the end of the film, after Snow has travelled down his road and lost what was important, she repeats the question. And Snow essentially tells her that it's because humans are inherently violent. The capital needs a reminder about how vicious and volatile the districts can get. Snow also learned through this process that that there has to be a winner for the games to live on. In the moment, of course, he seems to just want to save Lucy Gray, but that is definitely the argument he uses to persuade Gall into letting her win. The games need one because people need something to root for, to lose even. It's a way to save that which he loves whilst also getting himself a leg up in the process, which is again what we were just talking about. But this lesson allows him in the first film to have a similar conversation and pose a similar question to Crane, where he asks, why do they need a winner? Why don't they just round up 24 of them and shoot them? There needs to be a game, there needs to be a winner because of hope. Hope keeps the games alive, but it needs to be contained. He stumbles across this revelation in that 10th annual Hunger Games with Lucy Gray. So he leaves Crane with the message, it is the only thing stronger than fear. A little hope is effective, a lot of hope is dangerous. A spark is fine as long as it's contained. Which I think just lands so much stronger now with our understanding of the Lucy Gray situation, especially with Katniss playing chicken with the games herself when threatening to kill both herself and Peter. Because in Snow's philosophy there must be a winner. He fought for that idea because that winner is a spark, it's hope, but two winners, now that's a fire. Katniss is the natural progression of Lucy Gray, and her going missing leaves a mystery, and Highbottom in his final moments lets on to Snow that mysteries tend to eat at people. You know, I also see people have an issue with the lack of finality to Lucy Gray's character in the film, but a thing to say about this point is that Lucy Gray is not the protagonist. Her conclusion should service our main character in this story, since her inclusion at all is in service to exposing Snow's characteristics and worldview. Her not having a definitive ending matters very little because that ambiguity is to serve a purpose in Snow's conclusion, which is to keep him wondering, to have something eating at him for the rest of time that ultimately festers greatly until the events of the original series. Katniss is so much like Lucy Gray and he knows that. There's a great quote from Zegler herself where she says, Lucy Gray is a performer forced to fight and Katniss is a fighter forced to perform. Which I think is a perfect encapsulation of their characters, their perfect symmetry. Also, I think the beautiful idea of Lucy Gray's song about the hanging tree becoming the song of the revolution against the man she loved, against the man whose life she saved and him hers, is so powerful. And there's plenty of mirroring aspects like Snow's use of poison, which becomes his method of killing Crane later on, the idea that there's always another tyrant. Before Snow there was his father, and Gall, which led to himself, which was eventually going to be Coin at the end of the original series, which Katniss realizes. Coin in general in the original series is a striking mirror to Snow in this film. The bow both Lucy Gray and Katniss do after essentially defying the Capitol in a small way is a great little mirror. And the list goes on, and there will be plenty of videos that talk about all those similarities and Easter eggs and mirrors, and though I think most of them are done brilliantly, I will say some of them are a bit rough. The whole plant being called Katniss, though I think is strong thematically as he loses Lucy Gray as she goes to pick a Katniss, which ends up being his downfall twice, it just feels a little too wink wink nudge nudge for me. I do think Zegler's southern accent is a bit rough at times too, as well as being pretty unnecessary. But overall, I think the film is exceptional. Though I don't think it's the best Hunger Games movie, I do think it's the most layered and you will get the most out of on repeat viewings. It's just a brilliant character study of Coriolanus Snow. There's a reason why there's not a lot of emphasis on the action, on the games themselves, which are comparatively very timid and simple. Because it isn't the games that matter, it isn't Lucy Gray that matters, it's Snow. And the film executes that premise very well. The adaptation quality and writing is phenomenal, the performances are some of my favourites this year, especially in franchise films. I mean, Peter Dinklage and Viola Davis are standouts for sure. Jason Schwartzman crushes his performance, as well as of course Blythe and Zegler, who carry most of the runtime. The directing can be very beautiful and cinematic, but it isn't anything too exceptional, which granted is usual for the franchise, and though the film is fairly long, as is also expected with the franchise, it's paced very well and the momentum shifts where it needs to stay engaging. I'm sure when I'm done with this video I'll think of more things I should have said or want to add, but regardless of all of that, it would all be to the point that not only does this film stand alone as a great prequel, it actively works to make the original series even better, which is more than you could ask for. But that's just me. Have you seen The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes? If so, let me know what you think about it, let me know what you think of this video and whether it's one adapted from the Hunger Games novel series or not. As always, keep watching movies.